קיבלנו היום תזכורת לשיתוף הפעולה שלנו עם בנות בריתנו להגנה על המרחב. הצי החמישי של פיקוד המרכז האמריקאי שפועל בים האדום יירט 14 כלי טייס בלתי מאוישים ששוגרו מאזור בשליטת החות'ים באזור תימן סמוך לחודדה בדרכם למדינת ישראל. הוא יירט אותם בים האדום.
Another interception by the US Navy. Another maritime disruption attempt by the Houthis. Another attack in the Red Sea. Even as the Israel-Hamas war rages on in Gaza, Yemen's Iranian-backed Houthis have stepped up attacks on Israel-linked ships in the Red Sea, claiming they are acting in solidarity with the Palestinians. Houthi militants even fired drones and missiles towards Israel, hitting the Red Sea resort city of Eilat. Remember, during the onset of the war, the Yemeni Prime Minister Ma'in Abdul Malik Said warned Israel and threatened to target their ships in the Red Sea if the IDF strikes on the Gaza Strip continue. More than 2 months into the war, several attacks have been reported along the Red Sea. One of the most audacious attacks by the group was this one. On the 19th of November, a group of Houthis landed on an Israeli-linked cargo ship via helicopter and hijacked the vessel. Multiple commercial vessels have found themselves in the crosshairs for the first time in the conflict, and many companies operating these ships have now decided to avoid these routes. So, what's the global impact of these Red Sea attacks? What is the alternative route for the cargo ship to avoid these attacks? The Houthis' attack has threatened sea lanes that ships much of the world's oil. What will be the impact of the Red Sea disruption on the oil prices? The battle in the Red Sea is just intensifying. Look at the distance between these two countries. Separated by Saudi Arabia, Yemen and Israel are about 1,600 kilometers apart at their nearest point. So, how is Yemen managing to strike Israel? Iran is backing the Houthis, who have been battling a Saudi-led military alliance in Yemen since 2015 as part of its regional axis of resistance. Saudi Arabia and its allies accuse Iran of arming and training the Houthis, but the extent of the relationship is disputed, and Tehran has denied it is funneling weapons into Yemen. The Houthis control much of Yemen's north, including the strategic Red Sea port city of Hodeidah, since the Yemeni civil war erupted in late 2014. The Houthi arsenal includes ballistic missiles that they have used against Saudi Arabia and its energy installations. They deny they are Iranian proxies and claim they manufacture their own weapons. Ever since October, the US Navy has intercepted several missiles and drones launched from Yemen, reportedly towards Israel. One of the new weapons of the Houthis is the Tufan missile. With a range of between 1,350 and 1,950 kilometers, the missile places Israel within striking distance. Apart from targeting the port cities of Eilat, located in the southern part of Israel, Houthis have another battlefield, the Red Sea. Spanning a surface area of approximately 450,000 kilometers, this seawater inlet of the Indian Ocean is located between Africa and Asia. In its south lies the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and the Gulf of Aden. To its north is the Sinai Peninsula, the Gulf of Aqaba, and the Gulf of Suez that leads to the Suez Canal. With a length of 2,250 kilometers and a width of 355 kilometers, it has an average depth of 490 meters, and in the central Suakin, it reaches its maximum depth of 3,040 meters. But do you know that approximately 40% of the Red Sea is quite shallow, and about 25% is less than 50 meters deep? The Red Sea's name is derived from the color changes in its waters. Normally, the Red Sea is an intense blue-green, but got its name due to extensive blooms of the algae called Trichodesmium erythraeum, which upon dying turns the sea reddish-brown. With its connection to the Mediterranean Sea via the Suez Canal, the Red Sea is one of the most heavily traveled waterways in the world, shortening the path between Asia and Europe almost by half as compared to traveling around Africa via the Atlantic Ocean. The recent attacks on the route have sent shockwaves across various shipping companies.
There is an unease in the shipping industry because of these attacks and because of the increase in the scope of targets in recent days. But at the same time, I think you're seeing the resilience of shipping being demonstrated in the fact that trade is continuing to flow. What would help enormously would be reassurances from militaries in the region that protection will be provided, as we have seen in a couple of the incidents already. And perhaps that we'll see the presence of warships in the affected area, which, don't forget, it's not the whole Red Sea. It's a small section of the Red Sea around the Bab el-Mandeb where the Houthis have control of the Yemeni coastline from which they can operate.
Let's tell you what happened on the 19th of November. A group of armed men dropping from a helicopter on the deck of a ship and then storming into the cockpit brandished their weapons at the ship's crew, ordering them to lie down. It's not a scene from any film. This is how Yemen's Houthis seized a British-owned and Japanese-operated cargo ship, Galaxy Leader, in the southern Red Sea, which was on its way from Turkey to India. Israel said the ship was not Israeli and no Israelis were among its crew, and described the incident as an Iranian act of terrorism with consequences for international maritime security. On the other hand, Houthis said that the ship was linked to Israel. It was reported at the time of the hijack, 25 crew members of various nationalities, including Ukrainian, Bulgarian, Filipino, and Mexican, were on board the ship. All were taken hostage. 2 days later, commander of the Houthi Navy toured the commercial cargo ship and said that his forces would stand ready to attack any Israeli ship crossing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in the south of the Red Sea.
We say to the Zionist entity that the Bab el-Mandeb Strait is a red line and we cannot stand idle. Any civilian or military vessel is considered a legitimate target for us. We also warn those allied with the Zionist enemy and who secure its passage through the Bab al-Mandab Strait that they are also considered legitimate targets. We will remain fully prepared and carry out combat missions until the Zionist entity ceases its attacks on Gaza.
A few weeks later, Galaxy Leader has now turned into a top Yemeni tourist attraction at port of Al Salif, where the vessel is anchored. Houthis welcome visitors to board the ship that they reach by small fishing boats, from walking on deck to taking photographs on board to listening to Houthi moral songs being played on loudspeakers mounted on the vessel's towers. It's a big hit with tourists and for those who agree with this kind of retaliation for the Gaza attacks.
We will seize the Israeli ships in the Red Sea and at the Bab al-Mandab Strait. And as the Mujahideen and the Sayyid, may Allah protect him, have vowed, 2 warships were hit yesterday at Bab al-Mandab. And all this is in defense of our brothers in Gaza and the children that are being struck and killed at hospitals and the women in their homes.
Meet Maria Teresa Meza, who waits in anguish for any updates about her son Arturo Zacarias Meza, a 32-year-old engineer who was on board Galaxy Leader when it was seized. Zacarias Meza sailed out on the vessel in June, and since then he had not stopped sending messages and photos showing his joy at discovering new ports in countries around the world. All that changed with a WhatsApp message that brought distressing news to the family home in eastern Mexico.
I would like to receive him safe and sound and tell him that I love him, that I miss him, that we need him very much and that we should have him here.
They just dropped in on them all of a sudden. It's like you see in the movies. That's exactly how it happened, and they must have felt very bad. Not being able to do anything, not being able to defend themselves, not knowing why it happened to them.
The latest in a series of missile and drone strikes by the Houthi group came on the 18th of December. They launched a drone attack on 2 cargo vessels in the region. Prior to this, on December 13th, a commercial tanker shipped from India narrowly escaped 2 missiles launched by the group. The continued attacks on cargo ships have forced oil major BP and a slew of freight firms, including Maersk, to diverse their shipments. These shipments were normally made through the Suez Canal around the Cape of Good Hope. The new route now, all the way around Africa, adds days to the journey times and incurs higher costs. Let's take a look at some statistics. About 12% of world shipping traffic usually transits via the Suez Canal. It is the shortest shipping route between Europe and Asia, passing into the Red Sea waters off Yemen. Normally, about 11,800 voyages are made each month through the Suez Canal, some 393 a day. Remember, after the 1967 Six-Day War between Israel and Arab nations, Egypt closed the Suez Canal until 1975. It led to the 1970s energy crisis and the 1973 oil crisis, due to a shutdown of oil deliveries coming to Europe from the Middle East through the Suez Canal. Also, recently, in March 2021, the Suez Canal was blocked for 6 days by the Ever Given, a container ship that had run aground in the canal. The blockade significantly slowed down trade between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. By March 28th, at least 369 ships were queuing to pass through the canal, stranding an estimated $9.6 billion worth of trade. Back to the present, any blockade will take a massive toll on the world's economy. But apart from that, it's the human cost too that has become a matter of concern. The decision of shipping companies to temporarily pause all transit through the Red Sea shows the crisis is broadening. Crude climbed nearly 2% on the 18th of December this year after a Norwegian-owned vessel was attacked. BP said it paused all transit through the Red Sea, raising concerns over supply disruption. Industry sources said the impact on global trade would depend on how long the crisis persists. But insurance premiums and longer routes are the immediate burdens.
Well, it's more or less that this risk factor that we hoped had gone and had passed away, namely supply chain frictions, is back in play. It depends now all on how long the tensions will last, on whether the Suez Canal will really be blocked for good. But if you just look at the numbers, the Suez Canal accounts for more than 10% of global trade, more than 30% of container transportation. So if this canal is really blocked, it means bad news for world trade, bad news for the global economy, and bad news for inflation.
Seeing the toll the attacks are taking on global trade, the United States launched a multinational operation to safeguard commerce in the Red Sea. On a trip to Bahrain, the U.S. Navy's headquarters in the Middle East, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the United Kingdom, Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles, and Spain are among the nations involved in the Red Sea security operation. The group will jointly patrol the southern Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden.
The lifeblood of the rules-based international order is actually seawater. All countries have the right to move freely and lawfully in international waters. But that foundational global right is under new threat today from the totally unacceptable attacks on merchant vessels by the Houthis in Yemen. We've launched Operation Prosperity Guardian under the umbrella of Combined Maritime Forces and under the leadership of Task Force 153. That operation is bringing together more than a dozen countries from around the world to conduct joint patrols in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden.
The Italian Navy is also sending one of its frigates to help protect the Red Sea shipping route against attacks by Yemen's Houthi militants. Under the new mission, the military ships will not necessarily escort a specific vessel, but will be positioned to provide umbrella protection to as many as possible at a given time. But there is one country that has been notably absent from the action plan: China. China has multiple warships in the region, but those ships have not responded to previous calls for assistance by commercial vessels, even though some of the ships attacked have had ties to Hong Kong.
Attacks on international shipping by the Houthis don't just harm those ships and those individuals. They harm the United States, they harm China, they harm the interests of every country. And so, yes, we would welcome China playing a constructive role in trying to prevent those attacks from taking place.
But the chief negotiator and spokesperson of the Houthis, Mohammed Abdel Salam, challenged the US-created coalition. He said the Iranian-backed rebels will continue targeting Israel-linked vessels off Yemen, possibly with a sea operation every 12 hours. In fact, a top Houthi official warned US and said, We have capabilities to sink your fleet, your submarines, your warships. The Red Sea will be your graveyard. As the Israel-Hamas war reaches the high seas now, some commercial vessels sailing through the region are displaying that they have armed guards on board. Private armed guards have been deployed for years on board commercial ships sailing through the Red Sea waters. They have also helped curb Somali piracy attacks over a decade ago. Many vessels seem to be opting for this option to tackle the rising tensions in the Red Sea. The information displayed on digital shipping tracker data shows many vessels have even replaced the name of their destination port. While many container ships have anchored in the Red Sea, others have turned off their tracking systems, according to reports. The vital shipping lanes in this entire area are on high alert. Back in Israel, protests have grown to release the remaining hostages abducted by Hamas on the 7th of October. In Gaza, as Israel continues to pound several areas, in the Red Sea, a new front of war has opened. Can the Houthis be stopped? Or will the Red Sea become the new focal point of the war?